And we are live. Very good. Welcome to the very first TOE conference. I'm not sure if it's the very first one, but it seems like it might be. And this might not actually be just a Theories of Everything conference. It seems to involve other people who have their own communities, namely the Memes of Destruction, Tyler Goldstein. And I think we're all starting our own communities on the side as well, but we seem to be coming together here from the platform of TOE, Theories of Everything. There we go. So I'm going to explain how this is going to work. What I want to do is state the goal and establish a little bit of etiquette. I'm going to ask Brandon if you wouldn't mind to take notes on a couple of different things. If there are points of contention between two people that they might want to debate later in a video or in a recording, I would like to mediate those as well. That would be fun. But if you just want to go head to head another time on something, that would be great. So Brandon, please do that. I know you're going to take notes anyway. That's who you are. I'm also going to ask Luci if you wouldn't mind to be the timekeeper. So if someone goes over their time, you just maybe mention it. Say, hey, look, you're up. Your time's up. I don't want to do too much of the whole "you only have 3 minutes" thing, but the goal of this thing that I'm doing here is to, I actually wrote it down here. I want to read it. Let's see. So my goal personally, Roy once said in one of our interviews that I harmonize things. And ever since then, I realized, yeah, that is my goal in this community. I like to harmonize things. And so the goal of this specific conference is to begin to bring into focus what seems to be emerging in this community, whether it's theories of everything, whether it's sentient singularity theory, non-conceptuality, and so on. So what is emerging? Why are we coming together? And what's happening? So I want to bring that into focus. And being as this is seems to be the very first one, I want to make sure that everything that we do here today is about being clear, concise, objective, and respectful. But that's why I'm bringing us together. I think we've all shown a lot of maturity and mutual respect for each other, even though we disagree on ideas, and that's what's fantastic. So I want to maintain that. I think it's important for us to remain credible, especially being as we are non-academics, and that's something I want us to discuss as well. So let's have some fun. I'm going to start with one more thing. If you're not speaking, please mute, just in case there's noise, background noise. When someone asks you a question or something, then you can unmute. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to start with, in no particular order, just hear what I have. Brandon. Brandon is, you know what? Let's just add him and we'll talk about it. How's it going, Brandon? I don't hear you.
I'm muting. There we go. Hello, how are you?
Good. So Brandon, can you introduce yourself a little bit for anyone who might be watching this? And just give us a short overview of you and your theory or your work.
Yeah, I'm, in short, an artist, and my work ultimately revolves around using geometry to map out, or at least the elements of geometry to map out the patterns of cognition. We'll say that.
Very cool. So yeah, insofar as what you do or the role that you play in this community seems to have been some kind of support when it comes to showing people's patterns, thought patterns, that sort of thing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. I'm mostly I help out wherever I can if people ever want my input on things. And in regards to the community, I mostly just observe.
All right. Very cool. Thanks, man. Next, we have Daniel. Hey, how's it going, Daniel?
Hello, everyone.
Can you tell us a little bit about your theory and who you are?
Hello, everyone. I'm from Hungary, and I would say I am an independent philosopher, and I'm working on a theory which is called jumping continuity theory, and it's a little bit of natural philosophy, systematic thinking, network science, and holistic approach and big historical approach about the what we know about our world.
Okay, and it's called jumping continuity theory, correct?
Yes.
All right, very good. Next, we have Tyler. Hey, Tyler, how's it going?
Pretty good. My name is Tyler. I'm working on a theory called sentient singularity theory. It is that existence is a singularity of sentience or a sentient being that is creating additional sentient singularities or sentient beings within itself. And this project started as an attempt to map the different dimensions and necessities of self-awareness.
Very cool, very cool. And you like to call your theory of everyone, right? Rather than a theory of everything.
I would say that it is. My theory would suggest that a fundamental theory is primarily a theory of everyone more so than a theory of everything, but it's not. It's both in a way, but it's primarily a theory of everyone.
Right. So we'll have to talk about that later as well. And next we have Roy. Hey, Roy, how's it going?
It's going well. First of all, I'd like to say that I love the way Daniel says theory. And also, my theory is the theory of enlightenment. And it has to do with finding what is real. And hopefully, upon finding what's real, that's the end of suffering. And I say that it's the concluding final ultimate theory because not so much in that it shows something new, produces something new, but it indicates where everything has been wrong in the first place. So rather than putting something new, it's going back and saying how everything's wrong.
Okay, very cool. All right, so far we have a really cool setup. I love this. Next we have Luci. Welcome, Luci.
See, I just passed the human test.
Yeah,
I forgot to unmute. Hi, I'm Lucy. In regards to the theories of everything, my idea, I call it a model of some things, not a theory of everything. And the pre-title of the book is The God Cell, is about seeing the universe from the inside out, mostly. And defining a whole bunch of these difficult to grasp terms and ideas like non-linearity of time in a very visual and fun and interesting way so that you can actually use on your day-to-day life to, just live better and enjoy yourself more. So that's my direction of work.
All right, very good. All right, thanks, Lucy. And last but not least, certainly we have memes. And here's the thing. I'm going to have to boot someone out for the moment. Daniel, I'll boot you out. Okay. Remove from stream. Let's see. And I'm going to add to stream. All right. Okay.
So how dare you remove somebody due to financial constraints there? But hey, guys, what's going on? Memes here. But listen, I am just a dude on the internet I might also be one of the luckiest sons of guns in the world. I'm just saying that due to a particular circumstance of events have kind of just led me on a particular path, and I'm ending up here with you all right now. I think that's pretty cool.
All right, very good. Thanks for that intro, memes. Just to make it interesting, I think people might want to know, like, where are we from? So is everyone cool with me just saying it out loud for everyone? All right, cool. I've got Brandon, who's in the States. Where is it? Ohio?
Alabama.
Alabama, very cool. Tyler's in California, LA, I believe. Memes, where are you? Wisconsin?
I am a masshole born and raised. Apologies for my French. Apologies to the French. But no, Massachusetts kid. Just
Massachusetts.
Maybe Utah in the near future. We'll see.
Okay, very cool. And we got Lucy, who's from Brazil, right? Where in Brazil?
The state of São Paulo, near the coast.
Okay, cool. Roy is in Big Bad, BC, in the middle of BC, British Columbia, Canada. I'm from Canada as well, and Daniel is from Hungary. I believe he's living in Budapest. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it's really cool how we're all kind of peppered throughout the world, and you know, we're just coming together using the technology that allows us to do it, and so yeah, I'm kind of grateful for it. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna get us started here. Thanks for your introductions. Now I think we should dig into a few things. We have a timekeeper. We have someone to take notes. Very good. The questions that I want to explore today are the following. The first one is, what is required for the theory of everything? So not just a theory, but we have to define the theory of everything first. And what is required for that theory in order for it to be truly complete. So I'm going to ask you guys to do about a 2 or 3 minute statement on that question, and might as well get the other questions out of the way just so that we know what's coming up, and that way you can percolate it in your mind. The second one will be, can material reductionism and metaphysics be reconciled? So this is more for an open discussion, and I'll mediate it. We'll let that go on for a little while. But yeah, please try to keep it as concise as possible. We don't want 15-minute lectures. The third question will be, how can each of our theories be useful in the world? That, once again, will be like a 3-minute max thing. And then I have 2 wildcard questions, which I think are going to be a lot of fun to have fun discussing. And so there it is. Let's start with who we have on the screen in the same order that I've introduced you guys. Can you, Brandon, please give us in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, what is required for the theory of everything to be truly complete?
Well, I would say that there are barriers that may prevent us from arriving at a consensus due to our differences, taking in, processing, and using information. With this, we all may disagree on the following, and there are 5 items to this. How it should be expressed, that is the use of language, its presentation, its format, etc. How it should function, its processes, interface, etc. What it should be used for, its end goal, purpose, telos, etc. Who should use it, and the exact justifications for each of those answers. Ideally, it would be done without merely agreeing with every single proposal for an answer. Be specific enough to begin building something exacting and precise, and must be answered with the intent to actively build it. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. And the lasting question would be, is this realistic? And if so, what stops us from building it right now?
Very cool. Very cool. That's, yeah, you had a prepared statement there. That's true. Tyler, would you please go next?
Yeah, I think that it's a better term than theory of everything is a fundamental theory. So just what a theory that describes what is truly fundamentally existing, and not just conceptually, but ultimately. And I would say that kind of a definition that I've just arrived at essentially of how this would expressed in a way is that it is a recognizable, predictable, describable, and applicable pattern that occurs on all instances of objective observation, and an explanation for such a pattern. So it has to contain itself. It has to explain in a way its own existence. Otherwise, it's just a statement. But I would say that if you want to have something that's more complete and applicable and to our world, then it has to be a pattern. So
okay, thank you so much. I'm going to reiterate the question for memes here. What is required for the theory of everything to be truly complete?
I have no idea. It's I'm just now. When you say a theory of everything, and this is something that Tyler brings up on a frequent basis, it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about a fundamental theory of like everything? And like even Professor Wolfram will say like he doesn't like the term theory of everything. For him, he's looking for a fundamental theory of physics. Basically, how do the elementary stuff and things go working within our realm of persistence here? It's like, okay, that's why the language does matter. We want to be as accurate as we can. This is something I spoke with Luci a little bit about before we popped on here. And that's why I say I don't know. You could always purport, oh, the Laplace is demon and everything. Oh, we're trying to do this, but then the demon's going to have entropy. And one of the things I took away from Dr. Eric Weinstein's geometric unity, he was proposing it as more of a conceptual and observerse, if you will. What would an outside observer be able to tell? Because if we're going to make the assumption that something like Gödel's theorem is true, basically, to prove the axioms within the system itself, you literally need to go a level up, pun intended, to outside the system to figure out what's going on. So that's why my short answer is I don't know, but I think we can get a better approximation. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, and I think we're all working towards that, which hopefully will lead to a better world, whatever that may be.
Okay, I wouldn't expect anything less from this community. We all understand we have to define the keywords and come to a consensus as to what these things are. Be a little bit more analytic. Very good. Thanks. Luci, can you please give us your answer? And let me just restate the question again, just in case someone pops in the middle of this. What is required for the theory of everything to be truly complete?
Well, in my opinion, number one is that if it's going to be fundamental, then it's got to be simple. It should be able to fit on a song like Baby Shark and stick to your mind like glue and be fun. Should make you move. I think it's the better expression. It should make you move. It's not just that it's useful, but it creates a tunnel. It creates a path where you understand fundamentally why is it that you and everything exist. So you are going to start to live with that concept in front of your face like a shiny crystal or something that will guide you towards the more harmonious scenarios of life. So a lot of people, for instance, would like to have money and things like that, have a certain optics of happiness connected to material possessions, and they talk a lot about manifestation stuff. And in my mind, the one theory that you could put in a song would lead you to your greatest path unequivocally if you are able to keep focusing on it and not take the crystal out of the front of your face. It should be like a piece of equipment that is also a poem, that is also both funny and dramatic at the same time. A child should be able to repeat it, and you wouldn't need too much intellect to be able to live through it. That's it.
Very good. I definitely want to reiterate that for you at some point. It's an interesting perspective. Thank you for that. And Roy, you're next. I'll just repeat the question one more time. What is required for the theory of everything to be truly complete?
Okay, well, I do agree that it must be simple. It has to be understood. A model is supposed to make something easier to understand. So this is why all these complex models, if it takes a PhD and 9 years to understand it, then it's obviously not what we're looking for. To me, it also must conclude all further systems of thought. Like, it must render all further thoughts or attempt to figure this out unnecessary or redundant. It must conclude all questions. And it must also express its own arising and its own passing within it. It must explain the why within each individual person, is what I'm saying. It's a very individualistic, subjective. There's a intuition part to this. So it must be understood. It must explain the why we're here, what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to do that. And finally, it must conclude all suffering. What's the point of a final theory that's supposed to explain everything that doesn't lead one to the transcendence of suffering? It's irrelevant.
Okay, very good. I think that's definitely going to lead to some contention later on. I love it.
Everyone
And
loves suffering, I guess.
I think so. I think so. We're masochists for it. I think that covers everyone so far. Does that cover everyone? Did I? No, Daniel. Of course. I just
I'm left.
Yeah.
All right. I just would like to add my take on about this, because many things we already heard. So what for me is important is to understand our limitation about the current time we have, because we have the territory, someone says, everything around us, but we do not have access to everything. We have a limited access to the territory. So what humanity does at the moment, humanity constructs a map, and for me, the map construction is a theory of everything. The question is, seems like it changed drastically in the last 1,000 years. Seems like three times. 300 years ago around Newtonian mechanics, 120 years ago around the relativistic Einsteinian, and seems like now. And why it is? Because the technological background is changing on the basis of the last map what we made. So we made the map on the Newtonian mechanics. We had the technology. Then we have the next map of that area what we see, and then new technology arises. And now we had this technology right now. We use that, and we are making the map with this technology.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Okay, this is going really well so far. I'm really happy and very excited. I want to reiterate a little bit and just contextualize everything we've said so far a little bit for someone who might be new to this community or who might just randomly be watching this on the internet. We're talking about theories of everything. We're talking about trying to find some kind of fundamental truth or something like this. So it's been mentioned a couple of times, Tyler and Roy, and I think Luci as well. I think we've all mentioned it in some fashion. But Tyler and I had a discussion a few weeks ago where we kind of agreed, or strongly agreed on this idea that there are 6 things that one needs to, let's say, fulfill in order to have a complete theory. I think this just might contextualize it for people who aren't really familiar with what we're doing here, because it's so abstract, right? And we might understand the level of abstraction that we're in and how to bring it to something more concrete. But someone who is kind of new with this kind of activity, if you will, they might not understand what it is that we're doing. So I'm going to reiterate it right now. We have the what, the who, the how, the where, the when, the why, and the how. Now, this is something we can debate as to the order of it, if there should be one or not. And so what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about what is it? We're trying to define fundamental truth. And the who, the identity part of it, is necessary in order to, let's say, decode it in a way. Like, what is one thing, but its identity seems to be something that human beings require. If we don't have the identity of something, which is to say maybe the meaning of something, then the what doesn't really matter. There's no way to conceptualize the what without the who. This is something that Tyler and I discussed. Maybe you guys disagree. We could discuss that at some point. Then the how. So obviously, how do things emerge? And then we're starting to talk about physics a little bit, or the interface between metaphysics and physics. But first, of course, we're going to need to have consensus as to, is there a metaphysics? And this is the next question that we're all going to debate. For that, by the way, you guys will be allowed to unmute, and we're just going to have a free-for-all. But moving on to the where and the when. So again, if we're going to discuss how, we're talking about how reality emerges, existence, and so on. So we necessarily have to discuss where and when, because we live in a space-time construct. So it has to do with location and time. And then the why, yeah, I guess I repeated how twice. But the why is there anything rather than nothing? It's the greatest philosophical question there is. Again, that could be debatable. But the point is, everyone wants to know why. That seems to be like the ultimate thing we're striving for as to why is this all happening? Why are we here? In order to derive purpose and meaning, which are very, very human things. So there it is. I've reiterated it for anyone who's just kind of new to this sort of thing. This is what we're going to be discussing in this in this next hour or two. I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but this leaves the floor open for the next question, which is, can material reductionism and metaphysics be reconciled? Now, this question is very necessary because in this community, we seem to have two camps, the consciousness-based camp and the physics or material reductionist-based camp. And so there seems to be a rift in the community, but at the same time, we're all coming together and we're open-minded and we're discussing ideas. So can it be reconciled? Should it be reconciled, or should it stay in parallel? These are things I want us to discuss. You may now unleash your microphones. And I'm going to ask Luci to get us started. I don't know, just thought that might be interesting. Do you think?
Well, maybe my first comment is just, did you guys see that the winner of the contest was a video about arguing in favor of panpsychism?
Mm.
So,
I didn't know. I didn't see that.
That's
yeah,
true.
so I didn't know this, but panpsychism seems to be making a comeback.
So could you please describe that for me? I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Is as opposed to materialism, thinks that biology becomes like a brain, and then consciousness happens because of the brain. So consciousness, that's materialism.
So it arrives from materialism. It says
no.
Oh,
It's panpsychism is that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe.
Oh.
It's everywhere. It's consciousness, and the brain is only a device that tunes to it, like a fork.
Okay.
So
Right.
the physical systems that have consciousness, what they do is more the job of an antenna. It's like an antenna that vibrates with the consciousness of the one universe, and it creates your little instance of yourself. And then you have a shell that's like the ego, and you walk around doing things because you are you, and
But
you're
the problem
there.
with that is that there's a wave and then there's something collecting the wave. So that's already a duality. So it's kind of tough to get around that, isn't there? Even when you put it in that term, there's a wave and there's something picking up the wave. So that
There's duality everywhere. Yeah.
Or I would just add my theory also a part of panpsychist theory, because my theory, I claim the every level there is an awareness and consciousness maximum. So on the unicellular, on the atomic, on the multicellular, and later on the multicellular city level, it's the emergent phenomenon of what we are describing here. So that's also a somewhat panpsychist view. There is a famous philosopher right now who is working on similar ideas, and so that's what I just wanted to add a little bit here. Maybe someone don't know because I didn't represent or present my theory in that way, but that's the root on my
Yeah.
theory.
So
Let's do a quick vote. Who's for panpsychism? Raise your hand.
in a way.
well, I'm
First,
definitely not materialism, but there's something else too.
but here's the thing.
It's all quantic, right? It's
We're
both
all
it is and it's not.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Okay, so that's great because it's a great segue into my theory, because my theory is called paradoxism, and of course it's always both. And there's something called fuzzy logic, which has to do with probability and so on, which is that there is a bit of both. Now, it's great that you brought that up, Luci, because I think panpsychism is what is starting to act like a sort of polar magnet, I call it. It's like it's a magnet in between the two polar opposites that's starting to draw people in, because you have a lot of physics-based people and scientists and so on that are starting to look at consciousness as a sort of field. Of course, it makes sense, right? Because they study things as in forms of fields, and this is what Eastern religions have been discussing forever, as if it was a science. So we're maybe seeing a dovetailing, whereas in the past we had a bifurcation between religion, which had a lot to do with metaphysics, and science, because they used to be one and the same. And then now we're seeming to dovetail back into that, even though we spent, let's say, roughly 600 years with these two fields in parallel. And I think what's dovetailing us is panpsychism as an idea. It seems to be what might be able to reconcile things.
And it's also the failure of science. Like science has to recognize that it has limits. It's come up with its own limits, and it has to recognize this. It can't just blindly keep going on thinking that it's going to come up with something. I mean, it has limits. Then you go into stuff that isn't physical, metaphysics, right? So physicists have to recognize that physics has limitations. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Memes was saying earlier, right? Like there seems to be this problem where this science, it's not even a problem. I think they know it deep down, but they can't undermine their own career. I mean, they spent 8 years going to school. How do you tell them, hey, that was unnecessary? Because if you're on the edge of theoretical physics, and this is kind of a it's like a synchronicity. This morning on my way down from, I'm living in a small town in the mountains, but I'm in town here in Santa Marta for the internet connection, right? And I met this Swiss theoretical physicist a few weeks back, and I saw her today. It was just strange. I never thought I'd see her again. And I remember having this discussion with her in a restaurant, and we're talking about theoretical physics. And I was trying to explain to her how there's this fundamental contradiction where you're trying to stay away from consciousness, and you're trying to use physics to understand existence. So it's like the ruler problem, right? I mean, how can you measure a ruler with the same ruler? Science necessarily has to do with physics, and you're trying to understand, the entire system. You're always going to fall into infinite regress. You're going to have to create a new physics-based construct that will allow you to describe the system, but that's your construction, and that's where I think I agree with you, Roy, that we are actually creating reality. Rather, when we find these new scientific laws or whatever in nature, we might actually be creating them in some way. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be something, is instead of discovering these subatomic particles, they're actually creating them? Like, how's that for a dog chasing their tail?
Or maybe out here is to interesting enough. The theory of everything usually came from the physics community.
Yeah.
I would like to argue we might start a new name for what we are doing, because the theory of everything for them is what they are trying to do, but probably they won't reach any meaningful sense. It's 100 years ago they started and they didn't go too much, but so that's I think a duty on us to describe what we are doing and what is fundamental theory or something, a name about what would contain the theory of everything.
Having fundamental in there might be good, like Tyler said, like just the fundamental theory of consciousness, maybe.
I personally, I'm sorry, Roy.
I agree. We can't use the theory of everything anymore. It's like tech people grabbing the word singularity and using it for them, right? No, it's singularity as a physics term first. So yeah, theory of everything isn't working at all.
It's a physics term, but it's the term to describe the limit at which physics is the limit of physics understanding.
Yeah, but you get the analogy that I'm saying is that we shouldn't be using theory of everything anymore because it's lost its meaning. Right?
No. That's a great point. And Lucy and we had talked about this a little bit before. it's the context. Because a lot of times people will use the words, but depending upon our personal experience, basically the things that go on around us, it's like that particular word, singularity. Like if I'm a mathematician, we run into singularities all the time stuff. When you run into physics, it's like, all right, now we need some form of a new ontology, if you would. We need to explain what's going on, or we just delete them and assume that we ran out of space there. So what I'm going to do here is the panpsychism thing, I've taken to having to say, panpsychism aside, because every once in a while I'll have a thought, I'll be out running in something, I'm like, why does a neutron decay? And I'm like, is there some particular perturbation that gets it going and everything? And all of a sudden, as I start to use my computational power, I tend to trip and fall on my face. And I know I'm going to trip and fall on my face because I'm spreading my attention around. And I'm like, it's kind of like asking, is a star alive? Well, what is alive? I don't know. Does it have the ability to achieve homeostasis? Does it have the ability to come into existence, to be born? Does it have the ability for its existence to end? Can it die? And I keep on seeing these similarities. So I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm one of those materialist things. Thank you for defining, James. I really had no idea what that word meant. But my thing is, I'm like, I'll play with some numbers on Wolfram Alpha. I'll line some things up and everything. I have a blast doing that. As far as figuring out the exact ontology of our existence, that's totally on you all. I'll interject here or there. But my big thing is, what is physical? I'll leave you on that, and you should bring Brandon back up. You can move me to the basement.
I would like to just, I guess, state that my framework provides an explanation for what physical is, and it does harmonize it, to use that term, with idealism or panpsychism, which I don't like the term panpsychism because even though I don't disagree with the basic premise, because it assumes that when you say everything is conscious, basically stating that this water bottle is conscious and things like that, and we that I think intuitively it causes problems for us because we look at it and we don't think that that's conscious, and I would argue that that's correct, but within my theory, existence is a lineage that is a series of nested minds, and that the relationship between two minds that are nested causes the appearance of what is physical and also the experience of what is idealistic, essentially. So if you're a mind within a mind, then the thoughts of the mind that you're within are concrete to from your perspective, because they override your thoughts in a hierarchy. So if the mind that you're within is thinking something and then you have a thought in your mind, your thought is not going to override the thought that is going on in the mind that you're within. So you're not going to be able to just think a Ferrari into existence right away by just, picturing it in your head right in front of you. But because it might violate the thought that is the coherence of the thought that's taking place in the mind that you're in. So basically materialism and idealism or panpsychism, I don't think are actually contradictory. I think the idea that they are contradictory is wrong. They would be just two sides of one coin. Coin is heads and tails simultaneously.
Yeah, but there is a coin, Tyler.
There is a coin. There's a coin.
Just the thing, I don't think that the argument for panpsychism is that everything is conscious immediately all the time. I think that the idea is that consciousness permeates the entire universe, and some structures are able to tune to it and then have it and be self-aware. So maybe a rock or a water bottle don't do that, but the idea is that consciousness is already there, and there is a concept of sharing this perspective of being both the very center of your own universe, because you're not going to put yourself into anybody's shoes ever. It's impossible. And at the same time, you're a tiny bit of sand on a ginormous multiverse where you are completely irrelevant, basically. So we are both at the same time the gods of our own universes and a little speck of sand to everything else. And that's the the drama, I think.
So I'd like to interject about the question about what is physical. And to me, the physical realm is the senses. See, there isn't a physical realm that's out there. There isn't a body and a universe that say there isn't a universe that's separate from the body and the body is picking up signals from the universe. The entire universe flashes on and off, including the body, your body, on and off in a sequence. And the senses project the world. You see, there isn't a world that we sense. See, we get this a little bit off, and it makes all the difference in the world, is that everything is the senses. The senses project the world. There isn't a world out there without the senses. And to try to clear up the whole consciousness thing is the way my model is that there's awareness. And awareness, consciousness is just the content of awareness. So in deep sleep, there's awareness, but there's no content, right? So one would say that you're not conscious. So consciousness doesn't really work, and everyone knows it because we're it's a stumbling block, right? Everyone doesn't agree what consciousness is, and so we're talking about it and no one gets anywhere. But if I say that if you just think of it as consciousness is the content of awareness, and awareness doesn't require content, right? Just like in deep sleep, dreamless sleep, you don't require time or the world for your existence, right? So, and then in deep sleep, you still exist, but you're just not conscious. So there's no consciousness, but there's awareness. So I want to make the distinction between awareness and consciousness. Consciousness is the content of awareness, but awareness is absolute and doesn't require anything relative to it.
Okay, and that's like why Tyler uses the word sentience. So could you mention that?
Yeah, sentience and awareness is pretty much the same thing, I would think.
Yeah, they're very similar. I like that sentience, by definition, focuses on feeling, because I think that the one that is aware is the one that feels.
You could call that a sense, then, right? A feeling is a sense.
Yeah, I would say that's the case. And that is why I use the word sentience. But the issue with consciousness is that it's used for multiple different definitions. You can be conscious of something, or are you conscious at the moment, meaning awake, or are you a consciousness? Like it's become too confusing to be used for the description of something I think that's fundamental, even though it's not intuitively, it feels correct because it isn't really wrong, but it's not specific. And that's, I think, the issue with that.
Can I just point out one thing right now? If anything, James, thank you so much for doing this, because it seems that we've identified that two of the major things we're running into as roadblocks are literally the things we're trying to figure out. We can not necessarily agree on what a theory of everything is. So number one, that's going to be a problem. And if everybody has kind of their own idea of what consciousness is, that seems like another problem. So if these are the fundamental things we're trying to work out, I love the fact that we're actually communicating, we're picking up other terms. I really liked Roy's awareness part. I like how Luci is like, all right, we've got all this. Think of yourself like an antenna. Is that what the observer is? Are those our senses? And Tyler brings it down with literally, I feel, therefore I'm real there. I'm just like, again, I think we're all kind of honing in on a single point. So I'm curious what Brandon is aware of.
Okay, great. So as Brandon is going to answer that question, just really quickly, that's a great way to segue into my next question, but I want Brandon to answer first. The question is, do you guys then think that we should standardize a sort of like dictionary of terms in a way, or does that standardization create a rigidity that would once again lead us towards something that might not work, or will it render compatibility? So I want us to
you'd basically be creating a group then, because the group would be that which agrees upon all of these definitions.
Yeah,
which is fun, right?
Exactly. I'm just curious, like if we create a dictionary in order to understand what we're all talking about, would that be helpful or would that hurt?
Yeah.
That's the
We
question.
have to. If we're talking about two different things, it's never going to get anywhere, right?
Exactly. So I want to know what you guys think. But Brandon, Memes, could you please just reiterate your question simply for Brandon again?
Oh, I'm just curious about his take on the previous question since he's back here now.
All right. When it comes to what is physical, to me, it would be the geometric expression of what a point is. I would classify it as the singular unit of information, and I do think that information is the basis of what everything is in the most literal sense one could imagine. What is information, and is can only be described as a point. And I also define truth as the concept of is also the point. So with all of that defined, it's like, so what is the point doing? What is it going towards? What's it connecting to? And that leads into a matter of seeing how points are formalized or structured in very particular ways. And since everything is moving in a very particular way, it is going to form cycles of sorts, from what is observed anyway. When information moves, it forms cycles, and those cycles form, well, shapes and forms, and by proxy, bodies. And that would, to me, define what physical is. And of course, information implicitly means everything. And if the world is nothing but information, and by proxy, everything is just points, then that means that everything implicitly has some degree of meaning. And because all of these points are all interconnected together, moving in some degree of absolute union and harmony, that means that, well, everything has a context, and everything is, in a way, a sensing, a part of an entire sensing whole of sorts. And wherever the individual is just a localization of a bunch of context and information and meaning, all moving, of course, staying the way that it is, and from as far as we can tell anyway. That's a very complicated thing to get into. But yeah, that's what I think the physical is, or what physical is.
Groovy.
Yeah.
Or
James, you can
Alright.
pull me into the basement. It's fine. I need a.
So with this movement, is there something there? Doesn't there have to be some? I don't want to use the word something. Isn't there a phenomenon upon which a stillness upon which all that movement is noticed, focused against? Right.
Yes.
There has to be a stillness, a nothingness, if you will, of
Someoneness.
undifferentiation behind that stuff, in order to focus that stuff against it. You know what I mean? There always has to be something that's still and unmoving and unchanging, against which all of this movement, all of the movement, is measured against, right? Focused
Yes.
against.
Yeah. And
Contrast. Yeah.
I do have an answer for that. It would be there. When you describe stillness, I get two concepts. You first have the concept of the empty space, the void, the nothingness, etc., things like that. But with that, when you recognize the nothingness, it has to inherently, necessarily collapse into the point, because you're recognizing that it is an emptiness. It is a vacuum. So it becomes what is, and then the isness is necessarily doing something and going somewhere and connecting to something else, and that renders eternity the line, the absolute narrative. And that's where everything is happening within. Everything is within this section of beginning and end.
So could you say that, would you say that, if it's interesting because if you watch Clea Irwin has a theory of everything called emergence theory, and he's with the Quantum Gravity Research Foundation, and he has a video online called "What is Reality?" It's very good. I highly suggest it. But in it, they show that this discussion in a funny way, where physicists are saying everything is matter, then they're saying everything is energy, and then they're like, well, energy is matter, and they're like, okay, but energy is more fundamental. And then somebody says, well, no, it's all information, and then they're like, well, no, it's all energy. And then he's like, okay, well, energy is information. And they're just kind of going more and more and more fundamental with this. And it's interesting that it kind of ends up in this that video that won the TOE competition that was argued for panpsychism that Luci brought up, I think, is triadic idealism, I believe. And I haven't watched it all, but it's interesting that even that matter, energy, and information is kind of triadic. But would you say that we need to decide on what is more fundamental in the relationship between an informer, information, and the informed, or would you say that they are inseparable and one? And can information exist outside that which is the one interpreting the information? An observer, I guess. I would say no, but
yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, so I want to bring up a word that Roy and I are using a lot, and it's potential, because Tyler, you did a good job there of pointing out this epistemological nightmare where we're all trying to, there's this analytic debate over these words, like what is information, what is energy, or do they equate each other, all that's the epistemological nightmare, I like to call it. And ultimately, I think it's important to choose one word, because if there is one thing, you have to start with the fact that we are all assuming something, which is that truth can be reduced to one thing or non-thing or whatever you want to call it. But if absolute, something fundamental is absolute, then we are talking about unity. And so everything kind of collapses and is equivocated. So then the question is, or becomes, which word is the most objective and has the least amount of assumptions, right? Occam's razor. And I think potential, which is fantastic because it seems to include other ideas like void, nothingness, energy, information. It seems to encompass those.
Infinity.
And infinity, exactly. Eternity, it encompasses that a lot. It's potential. And to me, if you use that word, then how do you get from that perfect stillness, which we are naming potential, which already is starting to divorce itself from stillness, because potential is something that makes you think of action, right? It is preparation for action, or the ability to act. And so that is where the interface between metaphysics and physics begins. And to me, in my opinion, that begins with the idea of superposition. And now we're getting into some more theory stuff, but I just want to understand or know what you guys think, and what Luci thinks as well, because you haven't spoken in a while, about what this word should be. And is this the beginning? So we're segueing into the next question, right? Should we start to, because it's great. This is what's awesome about this community. We're not just trying to answer a question. We're actually doing the work at the same time. So are we starting to come together and try to create a consensus over what that word should be? And what do you think it should be?
Why can't we just stop at the nothing is nothing that is described? It is exactly that which is not described, right? There has to be a phenomenon that is not described.
You're right, but go and explain that to people.
Physics then just say, by the way, go ahead.
Roy and I have been talking about this over and over again. That the thing is, like, you could say that, but then people would say, okay, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So you have to lead them to that idea, right?
Because there's times where people aren't thinking, right?
Yeah.
So what's that?
But
like, why can't
right now
a phenomenon that is not description or that cannot be described? Hello, the Tao.
Yeah, you can say it's been done many times. It's something that has to be experienced, but
science has to get their head out of their ass and recognize what science is telling them through uncertainty principle and Gödel's theorem and Bell's theorem, is that you can't. It's not working. It will never work. You have to stop now. Just fucking stop.
Yeah.
Stop and meditate.
You're right, but again, you're here and you have a theory and you're trying
I'm
to
not a
lead people to
scientist,
that.
and I don't need
No,
tenure.
but
Yeah.
do you see what I mean there? Do you see the paradox? I mean, you're trying to lead people to that, which is what thought, right? So anyway, I want to go to Lucy. Lucy, when it comes to this lexicon or something that we're trying to create, do you think there should be one word that we start off using, and should there be consensus?
I think there should be consensus about what it is to exist, what is consciousness, and what is truth. I think those are way too fundamental, and I hear a lot of the videos people using these words, but I don't really know what they mean on the context they're using. So I think those three are important: existence, consciousness, and truth. And if you want my quick opinion, just existence is anything that we can talk about exists. Consciousness is just self-awareness, any system that can take information and act on it um, is pretty much suffices for me. Uh, and Truths are two kinds of truth: the subjective personal truth that any person can say whatever they want about any object or idea and leave that out as their truth. So if I want to say that this little bottle here is my god and I'm going to be a good person because the bottle told me so, that's my own personal truth and I can live with that. uh, that's a more fundamental truth than the second part, that's the things that we can uh, testify that are happening in shared reality. So all the science stuff, basically materialism. So
Would
there is truth in materialism as well, of course.
would you say that, are you saying that truth, subjectively, what is true is what people state, or is it what people experience?
I think that the more precise measurement of what that truth is their actions. So none of those. You can go around stating that you're a basketball player, but then if the last time you played any basketball was like 20 years ago, well, okay, you can keep thinking you're a basketball player. Sure, that's your own truth.
Okay. Daniel, I'd like to get your opinion on this when it comes to whether we should come together on a consensus with these terms.
Yeah, but for sure we have to use the words for similar purposes. So to have a consensus on words, that's the number one thing we should do, or everything should do. Actually, science doing that. So on that part, it's not that bad. Um, so as Lucy described, existence, consciousness, truth. I'm not sure the truth, and that might be a consensus on those, because that seems like a special case here. But the existence might be, and the consciousness might be. Uh, yeah, for me, what is exist is everything as it exists in the now, and that's what you the ops and important. What Tyler also pointed out, the observer is really key here as well. Seems like the scientific community a little bit forget about observer. They went through an observer in the quantum mechanic way, but that's not the key part here. What I try to point out, and my theory baked in, the the observer is we at the moment, and 2 billion years ago, as we know at the moment, there was no multicellular observer in this area of space. So what seems like to happening is the observers appear a certain amount of time, and they construct the map for the territory, and then they have the theory of everything, and then they live their life on those terms. And interesting part seems like that has a plateau in every system, because and certain amount of time the observed is limited. So, for example, we also seeing this in as a human sense. 400 years ago, we didn't know the observable universe is so big. So now, in the last 400 years, we start to experiencing and try to understand. That's it. So the cosmology is built on that one, and this I claim we still don't. We just starting on that one as science as well, and also our community. So and actually, um, when the humanity in future in theory they examine most of the information can be examined on the observable universe, because we are bounded on this level, then our understanding levels off, because there is nothing else that can be understood. So in the unicellular level and in the atomic level, I claim that's also happened. In the unicellular level, they leveled off about the Earth understanding, because they are lived on this surface. There was nothing more than just cooperate in the next level, and the cooperation started after the understanding and expansion is go. So after that, it starts the understanding again. So
So,
that's
if I can interject there, it seems to me like, and you have repeated this in your theory, that communication is central, and in order for there to be understanding, communication is central, of course. So, in short, could I answer for you that you do believe that there should be consensus insofar as the semantics with the words that we use? Yeah,
yes,
great.
totally. That's
So
I am.
I'll ask the same thing as well of Tyler and memes, and then we're going to move on to the next question because there's a couple more wild card ones that I want to surprise you guys with. So Tyler, would you start us off?
Yeah, I think that there has to be a level of shared understanding always. And I think that we're going to start to see that now going forward naturally. I don't think we need to specifically come up with like an official an official dictionary of terms for this topic, because whatever the terms we use in discussions involving the fundamental have to be built on terms that we currently have to some degree, and some will arise that are new terms, but they are still built on concepts that pre-exist. And you can see that in the work of myself and others, and Chris Langan, and a variety of other people. I don't think that we need to artificially concretize it. I think that it will naturally arise. And part of the reason why it hasn't until now is because I do think that there was just a lot of, I guess, it was almost like a tactic in the physics world, especially, I think, and they're the ones that mostly are responsible for this culture of not communicating with your perceived competition. And I don't think that anything that's true is not competitive with anything else that's true. So you don't really have to worry about that. You should just worry about the truth of your own work. And if it's true, then it will be compatible with the work of anyone else that's true. But I think that non-acknowledgement of your perceived competition is what is kind of responsible for this lack of communication in this subject. But I do think that that is changing. I've seen that through the Toe channel and this discussion, and plenty of other discussions that are being had on other channels lately. It's kind of been an explosion of this topic since we don't really know what that topic that is yet, but other than that, we're attempting to derive what is fundamental. But there has been an explosion of interest and discussion on this since probably about 2020.
All right, thank you. Memes.
So more or less paraphrase John Vervaeke, I think people are sick and tired of the BS. Just my thing, and Tyler brings up an extremely important point because exactly, no, as Daniel was saying there, like if you don't have that communication, if we're just talking past each other, what the heck are we even doing here? It's like, well, this is what people have done before. It's like, okay, has that been useful? Now again, hashtag not all, but I feel that if you have scientists, especially whether they're in the physics community, the chemistry communities, biology community, whatever it might be, if it's being set up as, all right, here's basically your like rival corporations, here's our trade secrets, we can't share them, we don't want to get scooped, we need to publish this first and everything. I'm more of a don't hate the player, hate the game. If this is the system that we have set up, well, I mean, if people are naturally just gravitating towards whatever their generalized personal self-interest is, I personally think we're all more similar than we are different. We do each have our own unique life experience. You weave in the incentive structures and everything. Personally, I think most folks are good people. Might be wrong on that. But if most folks are good people and they're just getting sick and tired of the BS, it's like, I think that's the generation for a lot of these conversations, because I know at least one or more of the people here, one of the reasons why we're here is, well, we see not good things happening. We're afraid of what the future may have, and I think we all are trying to work towards a better world, whatever that might be for each and every one of us. Personally, I would disagree with Tyler a little bit. I totally think we should have a wiki. And Tyler, I'm not sure if you were around, if you ever went on there was an old Portal wiki that like had some beautiful animations and all this stuff, and then it just kind of like attention kind of died down around it. But like even just kind of like having, okay, here's what certain folks within this community had purported, maybe do like a little word map using, be like, we haven't fully agreed upon this, but ultimately it's like, I forget who had said it, but history is going to end up deciding on what it is. And at least within physics and everything, I have hope, because we must not forget that the internet helped bring us the SS Bodie McBoatface.
Okay, I love that. All right, so here's a little bit of like a halftime thing. Brandon, so Lucy is taking some notes. Thank you, Lucy. And also, Brandon, I think I had asked you to take some notes on a little bit, like what kind of points of contention there seems to be between the members that we might be able to do a debate on later. Do you have anything so far?
I wouldn't say points of contention per se, but I have been not summarizing everyone's points. It does move rather quickly. I tend to take better notes when it's all written down already. But
I apologize.
Yep, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, no. There are no real points of contention that I'm seeing. But then again,
just for the record, I want to discuss Lucy's idea that it should be something that moves people on an individual level, and that there's
the why. We got to get to the why. The rest, to me, that's the one that really matters. It's the one that really only matters to me.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just saying, like a point of contention, not a point of contention, but a point of discussion would be something that I want to discuss with Lucy, is that it should move you. I kind of like that. And Lucy is a DJ, by the way. She does a lot of music, and so check out her stuff. But I like this idea that sound is so relevant in her worldview, because we are discussing, in physics anyway, things in terms of like frequencies, right? So I find that interesting. Anyway, so please continue taking notes. Just want to remind you of that harmony, she says. Yeah, there you go. Harmony is a great word, and rhythm. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to move on to the last final question in terms of like the meat of this thing. It's going really well so far. I really love it. And then I have two questions, which I think you guys are going to jump on, and it's going to be great. The first one is, can and or will, oh no, sorry, that's the wild card question. No, I don't want to say that yet. How can each of our theories be useful in the world? So is there any utility to your theory? I'm going to ask Roy to start us off, because I think Roy has an interesting theory that it's kind of useful, but at the same time, you're not doing anything. So I think it's a great way to start off. Roy, you have about 3-4 minutes. I'm going to use the washroom. I'm going to bring Lucy back in. And at the very end, I guess we'll go with, I'm not sure who's going to go next, but I'll choose when I'm back. So, Roy, please start us off.
Tell me what I'm talking about.
I'd like to know if your theory has any utility to it. How can it be useful in the world?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like, to me, a theory, so what that E equals MC squared? Like, how does that affect how you feel today? Like, how does that affect your your subjective experience of the world. Like, it doesn't. So yeah, so the practicality of it is that, oh, how do I do this without getting into the whole theory of the thing? So the why of this is that it's a game. And the purpose of the game is for entertainment purposes. God just wants to be entertained. And the goal of the game, every game needs a goal, and the goal of the game is to find conclusion of the game. So based on that, my theory is functional because that which projects the illusion of an individual self and the physical world basically is thoughts. So what my theory basically says is that in order to get to truth, we need to transcend thought, basically, period, end stop. So I know that this is why my theory doesn't gain hardly any traction, because it's so hardcore. It's basically saying that voice in your head, which is thought, isn't truth. It isn't leading us to it isn't even relating to the physical realm per se. It's all Maya just playing the game. And playing the game for Maya is she's our opponent in this game, or ignorance, right? When you're playing a game, you're ignoring the real world, right? You're playing a video game, you are ignorant because you're ignoring the world that you're in. So thoughts create the projection of the character, your name here. So the practicality of my theory, the theory leads to the practice. My theory leads directly to practice, and the practice basically is meditation. It's transcending thought, period. So and in that transcendence is the conclusion of all suffering. Like, it's the conclusion of everything, basically, but included in that is the conclusion of suffering. And you jump. There's a quantum step that's taken, and I'm telling you, man, all of you, is that this is the next evolutionary step. The next evolutionary step, naturally, is to transcend thought. And human consciousness is stuck at this thought level, in this thought stage, and it's causing all of the problems. I don't know if you noticed, but we have a lot of problems, and thought, the I thought especially, is the cause of this. So the practical use of my theory is the end of all suffering and enlightenment.
All right. Thanks for your answer. Brandon, would you please go next?
Right on the timer. You were like 3 minutes perfect.
Oh,
Wow.
very good.
No, it's about how our theories are going to be useful personally. Okay. I would say that my theory would be, if I can call it as such, would be useful insofar as allowing people to become more aware of the particular functions that may govern them based on this system of divided categories that I've found with the concept of what is essentially of being, the point, the line that is drawn via motion, so the line itself and the motion that is creating the line. So being, relation, that is the point, and action, which is the motion. Those are the divisions based on how this direction is formulated. I'll say this. It's far more complex than what I am currently, how I'm currently describing it. It is very butchered because it is not prepared, but the ultimate use of it is that it would be to get people to understand that these things do indeed govern them, that they are moving in tandem on account of these particular aspects. They can become more aware of these things, and they can actively maximize these qualities insofar as or so long as their ability to attend to these particular aspects is deliberate and intentional. And that's what I'll say.
All right. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Daniel, would you please go next?
Yes.
And, wait, before you do that, I'm just gonna reiterate the question. How can your theory be useful or have any utility in the world?
Yeah. First of all, Roy ideas is very challenging, and I like to have get challenged. Um, Also, I think we all agree and all try to do this. The give some subjective understanding or meaning to people. John Verwicki also talks about the the meaning crisis. So I think that's also really uh, important here. So, and seems like this is where we all heading. This most of us wanted to have first of all for themselves a little bit more meaning, and lots of people just when starting on this journey, they have some breakout or they have something, but start this journey. It's usually doesn't happen when you live your usual life, quote. So that's important. Not everyone is carrying these ideas. So and every one of us, it's coming from a different perspective, and that's why it's important we start to talk, because the more agreement and more emergent will be this everything together. So my addition to this whole, I like this historical movement and processes to 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 get through to on every level, and I for me that's really helpful to guide you through everything in what you are doing as a person. So understand you are you are part of the story, and how important you are. That's really meaningful, and that's I think what my theory, if presented properly, could give to people.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Now, can you please clarify? You had challenged Roy. You said this is an interesting topic. Am I correct? You challenged him on this?
His ideas is challenging.
It's challenging. Okay, but is that a point of contention? Would you like to have a discussion with him on that later on?
I
Yes.
think what he's saying is Roy's basically just he's like end human suffering. I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
know.
something we all agree on. It's
Oh,
hard.
it's challenging. Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said it's challenging, and you want to. I thought you might want to have a discussion with him later on that. But yeah, no, you're right. It's absolutely challenging. Maybe the most challenging thing. Um, and so, great. We'll move on to Tyler then. Tyler, please, can you tell us what is the utility behind your theory?
So my theory states or implies that the primary reason for creation of multiplicity of sentience is the maximization of meaning, and so it has elements of its models that can be applied to explain what that is, and that I would say that that's kind of my main focus with the application of my theory, is that how can we understand our own meaning and maximize meaning within existence, because that's the implied uh, primary directive, I guess, or primary mission of God in the creation of multiplicity, and that there's also aspects of it that are very similar to what Brendan was saying regarding the mapping the dimensions of mind, and learning how to apply that pattern, those patterns that you can see within the connected dimensions of your own mind, and it can help you figure out different problems. But really, say that the main way in which my work is able to be applied, I would say pretty much universally, is that it is contextualizing. its use is to provide context between concepts, people, and fields, theories, all kinds of things like that. And that's, an ongoing process. But the contextualization of the things that we perceive and those perceivers that exist as well is, I'd say, the main utility of my theory is that it provides context.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We have two more, but I'm going to pass mine right now because I also want to participate a little bit. The utility for mine, I guess I didn't even present my theory yet, but the point is, ever since Roy said this in an interview that we did, Daniel, Roy, and I, he said that I harmonize things, and that kind of put all the focus, and it gave me a clarity as to what the utility of my theory is, or even maybe what personal purpose is in life, that I like to harmonize. And so the idea that all things are compatible is central in my theory, paradoxism. And that, I mean, if they exist, they're compatible in some way. And so harmony is definitely, I think, utility as well, because if everyone is harmonized, then it can lead to the next paradigm shift, the next level, or singularity, or peace, or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't really try to define what the utility is, but I think it is utility, or what the outcome of that utility will be. But harmony in itself is useful, and I have no idea what it's going to lead to. But Roy here is telling me behind the scenes I'm harmonizing physics and metaphysics. It's exactly it. That's the short answer. I want to reconcile physics and metaphysics. So this is a great segue into the second question of this conference was, can they be reconciled? Who votes yes with a show of hands? 1, 2, and let me see here who's outside.
The physicists will never stop. The physicists will never see beyond their physics, so they will never be reconciled. That's
Brandon,
they'll incorporate metaphysics in them.
They'll try to incorporate metaphysics in with physics somehow. It's like
they've already started doing that.
Brandon, did you vote yes for that? Can physics and metaphysics be reconciled, or no? He's thinking. I'm just looking at him right now. Can physics and metaphysics be reconciled, was the question. Did you vote yes or no on that? He's still thinking about it, looks like. All right, guys, so I just wanted to get he says it's unlikely, so he's taking a probabilistic approach. I love it.
What do you mean by reconciled? Is connected a better term?
Connected is one, but I would say reconciled in the sense that there could be a sort of consensus, a general consensus that metaphysics is indeed useful or necessary or part of the system in some way. So we've said so far, Brandon, could you note for the record, again, we have memes, me, of course. Tyler, do you agree? Well, I think you had put your hand up as well. And Roy, again, hands up, everyone. For Luci is a no. I think Luci and Daniel are a no. Okay, they cannot be reconciled. Just for the record.
What do you mean by metaphysics? Just for the sake of the discussion itself. Because if you look it up, it's the philosophy dealing with the first principles of things, and I actually think that that's not the best definition. But
yeah, well, I think that's true. We should have probably talked about that a little bit, but I think the idea that there is something that is supra-physical. That's the way I would like to define it for this debate. So it is not a physics-based thing at all. So that's my definition. Great. Okay. So I think we've done a fantastic job so far. I'm really loving it. We are still missing, however, Memes and Luci, I just realized. So they need to give their answers as to the last question, which is, what utility does your theory have? Memes, take it away, please.
Oh, all right. Full disclosure, it's not my thing. It's part of the physics monastery that I happen to be an intern at. And I just want to thank you again, James, for doing this, because, I mean, we got James over here. He's like, all right, let's set some bounds. What are the bounds? Infinity. All right, cool. And then we got Daniel over here. He's like, no, we keep on going through these cycles. We keep on hitting these plateaus. Look at it. Look at the data. And he's spending all his time on the data. Roy, apologies for my ageism, but you're kind of like the dad in the room. You might actually be the only person that's actually technically retired. I apologize for sharing that information, but you're just like, listen, end suffering, end human suffering here. It's like, I think we all agree on that, but it's like, stop playing the game, but we're all still here playing the game. So I totally love it. Server first level 80 Death Knight in World of Warcraft. I love playing games. Tyler is basically, I don't know if this was intentional or not, seems to be providing an ontological version of category theory of how to encompass these things, which also goes into some of what Daniel's saying here. And he's delving on, just look at these simple patterns. They kind of look like cellular automata to me. I don't know. It's not like there's a physics project totally based on that or the conceptualizations. And we have Lucy who's like, don't forget about the observer, my guys, and everything. It's just like, okay, you need to understand. It's like we're perfectly imperfect creatures existing in this realm of persistence. And then Brandon just sitting there, he's like, I imagine it's like if Morpheus was outside the Matrix and just taking notes. It's like, all right, I see all this stuff and things happening. I can start to understand why, and then some things keep breaking my brain. But as far as any type of utility or anything, universal replication is a goal, and I think there's no reason why we can't accomplish that in the next 50 years if we manage to clear the cachet of hatred from our heads and hearts. So that's what we're shooting for.
Okay, and this is what I love about memes, guys. He never answers directly. He actually gives you like the action. He's like, here's my utility. I'm gonna make this fun. You do, like we discussed that on your podcast, I believe, or maybe
Lucy and I were just talking. It's like if you can live it like a comedy. Technically, I think comedies, as far as movies goes, are supposed to have happy endings. So hopefully,
there you go. So I love it. Love your utility, man. You're making everything fun all the time. Great. So that leads us to Lucy. Thanks for waiting, Lucy. It's just I had her last because she's the timer. So please take it away. What is the useful, or how can your theory have any utility for the world?
Well, what's been happening to me is that since I've been thinking so much about these ideas in order to sort them out and put them on a book, because I'm more like the organizer than the author of the information. Really thinking this question of how the subjective truth is bigger than the objective is I've been keeping in mind a lot this fact that the truths that are installed into people's heads, they're the truths that are installed into people's heads. You just gotta kind of roll with the punches. It's made me a much more tolerant person, and that was actually a problem that I used to have, of being very intolerant and thinking that I was smarter than other people, and that seeing I'm here in Brazil, in my neighborhood, I'm surrounded by churches, right? It's a little bit like South Carolina when I lived there. So it's a whole bunch of evangelical people up and down the street, and I used to look down on them a little bit. And now my point of view is very much changed, where I try to keep in mind that they are their own gods living their own God experience, and that's the universe that they want to be. And that their truth, their must feel even more powerful than mine, because they actually probably have more faith than I have. And it turned something that before in me was a little bit of a prepotence into actually admiration, even for people that have severely different worldviews from myself. So that was unexpected, but it's what I'm going to try to convey at first, and I think that the secondary, more larger part, if like all your dreams come true and all of a sudden your book gets like famous and whatnot and a whole million people read it, then the secondary objective for me would be for people to try to inject this type of tolerance into political systems at will. So my little strategy is that the book is going to come with a board game, and the board game is going to have this specific feature that I still want to keep secret for now, where the participants will put into action this type of tolerance work. So the utility for me so far, it's been mostly tolerance, and then tolerance in action, basically. And just on another, sorry, I wasn't timing myself. I forgot to click the thing. But real quick, tolerance also means tolerance from other people's crap, basically, because I am here and there on transgender communities, and I think that people get offended about everything all the time, and I think that's very counterproductive. And in a sense, people need to raise their tolerance to whatever other bullshit people are saying online about their genders, or who they are, or what their worth is, or what should they be wearing, and all of these things. Like, people should stop being offended so much, because by being offended, you are giving people power to offend you. And raising your tolerance also means that. So yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's a great way to end this session, as like this question. We're not ending the session at all. And while you were talking, Luci, I was seeing Meme's face light up with a nice big smile, and I was just thinking about Brandon and Roy as well. Games are very central here. I don't know. I think Tyler, I've heard him speak about this on one of his Thursday chats on his channel as well, about video games. I'm not sure if you're involved in that still, Tyler, if you like to play. No? Or is that me? I heard someone else discussing it. No?
Maybe someone else.
Someone else. Anyway, the point is, games are really central, it seems, in this community, in one fashion or another. I'm willing to bet that your secret ingredient to your game, Luci, is maybe some MDMA. I don't know. It would help tolerance for sure.
The James Soros' channel does not promote entheogen use.
Yeah, no, it does not. No, just I got to state that.
Who cares what the rules of the game are after that? Really?
Yeah.
I do, but as per policy, I do not recommend any drugs for anybody for any reason. No, don't do it. Don't do it, kid.
Unless prescribed by your physician and brought to you by a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company, of course.
There you go, guys. This is great. I love this. But yeah, just to mention real quickly, Brandon has a bit of a game thing going on as well. So if anyone's listening to that, check out Nexumorphic, doing a little bit of publicity for him. And this brings us, it's a great segue into this thing that I wanted to say, is that I've kind of created a classification for types of theories, and I've actually classified you guys in a type of theory. So I'm just, for the fun of it, I'm going to have you guys. Let me see if I can share my screen here, and I'm just curious if you agree or disagree. Let's not get into a debate, because there's much more to talk about. But I just want to explain this really quickly as well. Here we go.
James put us on a list. Here we go.
All right. How do I present? There we go.
You got to click it like you're bringing up a participant.
Okay. Let's see. I just do the entire screen. In the words of Memes, I am a brave man. I've got the whole screen up here. Can you guys see that properly?
Click the thing next to it, so it'll make it bigger.
What, next to?
Like, if you look directly below the picture, there should be a couple options where you can either screen layout. There you go.
There we go.
Whoa.
All right. Okay, guys. So I have some classifications here, and I've actually put you guys 2 by 2. I think this is also why I think it's interesting to have brought you guys together. Now, mind you, these 4 types, no matter what type you find yourself in, the way this works is they're like Matryoshka dolls. They all fit within each other. So in a way, if you are in type 1, you will have elements of type 2, 3, and 4. If you're in type 2, you will have elements of 1, 3, and 4, and so on. So I do think that it's just there's a majority, or let's say there's a fundamental type that you use. It's like a starting point. And so the first type I've identified is called identitarian. So this really goes for like the who versus what reality is. It's a description, and of course you're going to describe how, because that's part of a theory of everything. You're going to have all the other types, but that is, I've put Roy and Luci in that. So this is something that maybe we could discuss later, whether you agree or disagree. And then maybe we can have a discussion over it privately at another time. The next one is functional. So it describes how reality emerges and how it functions as well from the human-centric point of view, because we are slaves to our subjective interpretations, and that could be debated as well if you guys want to debate that. But functional, here I have for the functional would be Brandon and I. So we primarily use logic and psychology to try to harmonize things and try to understand how things work. So we necessarily have to be objective as much as possible. I believe that Brandon and I seem to have more functionally based theories. Then we have predictive. So this has to do with describing patterns and extrapolating information from that, so we can make predictions, right? Future cycles and so on. I think most people will understand the app for sure. They're going to think of Tyler and Daniel, because this has to explain. It literally explains everything within reality, right? We're going deep into the levels, trying to see the patterns, trying to describe everything, and also try to predict the future in some way, shape, or form. I think Daniel has, in the last interview, we discussed that he has a bit of a time frame, for between 30 and 50 years for the singularity. So that's very interesting. Check out that interview. Then we also have a complete. So I've created this fourth type, and it's what Tyler was discussing earlier, which is that it's the combination of all three. Right, we're all trying to come at it from all three sides in our theories of everything, but we start from one platform. But we also try to describe. It's like a self-description. So this we would call a teleology in philosophy, right? It is self-referential. I think this is where the CTMU comes in. I think Christopher Langen really is a fan of that, and from what I know anyway. So I call it the complete. Because in order to be complete, you need a self-description. So it's literally just the combination of the three, and then it's a self-description. It's a piece of language that says, here, this is what I am. There it is. So those are, did I mention anyone? So that I would say is memes. Yeah, because memes is just surfing the wave, guys. I'm going to stop this here.
What do I do now?
So I think memes is a bit of the last one, because he's...
it would almost necessarily be the observer that doesn't even say anything.
Yeah, well, it could be that too. But see, memes doesn't.
Which one tackles the why?
Yeah, well, I think we all talk a why to some degree. But what I'm saying is,
how is ever going to touch on the why?
Yeah, no, I think we all have. I think
touch on why.
We all have a why, but I think so that's why I didn't create a category for why, because they all have a why at some point. A why emerges out of every type. So, but memes seems to surf and just collect and just sort of like isn't really subscribing to one or creating his own, but he's trying to understand. So I think it's if you're always constantly being open and you're not integrating anything, then you are literally infinitely trying to observe and infinitely completing a theory. So in my view, a theory of everything will never get done. It'll never be done. And so the ultimate thing, which is why I like Luci and memes so much, is that it's all about having fun. It's about like going out there, living your experience and or doing what Roy does, which is just sit in between thoughts and like in pure nothingness.
The problem with the fun thing is that there's always going to be not fun. That's the thing about duality, is that every time you have fun, you manufacture something, it's going to go into its opposite eventually as well. So as soon as you manufacture something, that manufactured thing has to settle back down into, the zero, I guess. Yeah. So everything that's manufactured is going to be impermanent and unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
Unsatisfying.
Because we could totally debate that forever, but because it's starting to come to almost 2 hours now, I have 2 questions. These are the wildcard questions that I haven't mentioned yet. I'm going to take myself off the screen and so that Daniel can pop back in, and you guys can just choose whichever one you want to talk about. I'm just curious who's going to jump on what, but we can discuss both if you'd like. But this is going to be the last thing that we're doing in this conference, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your faces on this. Okay, so the wildcard questions are: number one, good one, Roy.
Thank you.
Number one, can and or will artificial intelligence help us with the unified theory? So the theory of everything, or we could, or both. You could. This is the second question. What do we all think about academia?
I could answer that in 2 words, and they're not happy birthday.
Well, I know what it is. I wrote it down here: incestuous and retarded.
Incestuous and incestuous.
We prefer differently able.
That is academia.
All right, take it away. I'm going to circle back to that later because I think that's brilliant. Incestuous and retarded is like literally the funniest, the most precise and efficient and accurate description.
But literally retarding our spiritual evolution. That's what I mean. Like like literally retarding our spiritual evolution.
Yeah. All right, take it away, guys. I want to start. Continue. I want you to explain a little bit more about like why it's incestuous and retarded.
Well, Tyler knows this, is that they just won't fucking listen. It doesn't matter how relative or obvious what you're saying is. If you're not part of their little group, they're not going to listen to you. So fuck them.
Yeah,
we'll have our own little group here. We'll be the non-academic TOE community. That's what I think we should start. A non-academic TOE community.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
No, sorry. You can go as well.
Come on, Tyler.
Yeah.
You're here. I cornered you. I need you to be talking so I can.
I would say that there's a huge problem with our current academic community, and it has. I don't know exactly what caused it, but I think that it was almost an accident that it has been divorced from metaphysics or anything really involving a greater sentience, I guess you could say. And I think that this is a kind of a product of the fact that people try to teach religion in schools, but then they had to teach all religions in schools, and then it was kind of interpreted by people as in contradiction to science. And I think that this division caused us to break in our ability to understand the world. I think it has something to do with that. It also has to do with, and this is kind of the main issue with academia, is that it prioritizes secondhand information above firsthand information, and you cannot do that. You can see this in discussions between physicists online. You'll see. I remember.
Can I just? Do you mean like experience is a better understanding than what you're taught? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm saying that you have to prioritize that which you experience firsthand by that which you are told secondhand information, and that what we are being told secondhand information is it is contradictory to what we experience. And so they'll say things like, I heard Sabine Hassenfelder said this. She said that you don't need an observer in order to make a measurement, because you can just use a device to make the measurement, not even realizing that she cannot separate herself from being the interpreter of information that is conveyed by the device. So there's no separation between her as the experimenter and the device that is being used to make the measurement. And that shows an enormous breakdown. And I say this in a video that I have on my channel about how to theories of everything, the how-to guide. That was my entry into the PACE 1 contest. And is that we know the thing that we know to be true above all other truths, and that we assume above all other assumptions, is that we exist. And if we deny that, our thinking is going to, our ability to maintain information coherence as we attempt to think is going to break. And they have done that in academia today. There are some people in academia that I would say are doing great work, and there are PhDs out there that are even employed at universities that are doing great work, but they are not the majority. So you cannot prioritize secondhand information above firsthand information. And the truest thing that we know is that we exist. And so
any inquiry has to begin there, right? You have to begin with yourself and understanding yourself more than being taught something in school.
Well, you cannot assume that reality is different in nature than you. You can't do that. If you do that, then you're denying of your own existence. And if you do that, then you can't even make the argument that existence is different in nature to you. So to say that existence is, not sentient, essentially, but then to be sentient at the same time and to be existing is a contradiction. And
it's delusion.
It's delusional.
It's really like, how can these people not be seen as delusional? You're basically denying your own existence.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
the
fact that school pulls us out of the world,
wisdom and truth, they're fucking delusional.
Well, I mean,
but what does it mean
that we exist in a place that's it's just a shame that our environment is unfortunately blocking us from experiencing things truly. If you're sitting in a classroom for 20 years, 25 years of your life just taking notes, you're missing out on learning. So,
but what does it mean to exist? You guys are saying exist. What does it mean to do? Unicorns exist?
I would say that no. Existence is fundamentally sentience in my model. So if you're not
disagree
sentient,
too hard.
You don't fundamentally exist. Maybe you apparently exist, but or conceptually exist, but existence is fundamentally.
I think there should be a distinction between existence and that which exists. I know it sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but I think there needs to be a stark distinction there.
It's like true and truth.
It's
like why
that which exists, that which can be experienced, isn't necessarily the reality. That's what I'm saying, is that if things are inverted, then what we're looking at is the mirror image, that everything that we experience, whether it's a thought or a sensation, it's not the reality, it's the mirror image of the reality. So the reality is the zero, and everything else so we have it inverted, right? We have the model completely inverted. We've got the thing as the reality and the nothing as the absence of reality. Whereas I'm saying it's the other way around. And it's just that which cannot be described. But science can't go there. Like, they literally can't go there. Because science is describing things, and if it's not described, then science can't go there. So it's impotent.
Would you say that is that which cannot be described in your view, is that someone? Instead of something, is that someone?
No, I wouldn't say that, because you're getting too close to making it too humanized.
I'm going to stop it here. I think this is a point of contention already, or this is discussion.
Tyler and I could probably talk for 6 hours.
So that's good. I'm going to stop it there because, just so that we keep things level, and we can level up as memes. It's a little wink at you. Luci, that was a great question. Thanks for kind of spurring that on. Brandon, please mark that down. I think we might be able to have a mediated debate between these two. I want to hear a bit more from Daniel and Brandon and memes as well so I'm bringing it back to the question. It seems that we started off with academia. What do we all think about academia? Personally, I think, to go back to that incestuous and retarded, the reason incestuous is because it's a community that it doesn't open its doors to outsiders at all. It's just been closed off. The funding is closed off, as Christopher Langan seems to complain about often, and all that. So how do we react to that? Well, the reaction is that we're coming together, we're doing our own thing, and I think that's the mature thing to do. It's great, and but it is an incestuous thing in my view, and also we have a bit of a retarded effect that happens. Yeah, it retards progress. So it's pretty great that guys like Kurt set up this this platform. However, it is kind of ironic because he is only speaking to people who are in academia. So it is ironic a little bit, I find, but maybe he'll get to it. He did the contest, right, which was great. So Memes, what do you have to say about that?
First off, I think Kurt said he's attempting to change that as well, which is one of the reasons why he had the contest. I'm going to have an issue of contention with some of the language that James used there. While it may be mechanically correct in some contexts, again, as Lucy said, it's like the context matters. You also got to understand there's going to be folks coming around from all different valences that may just come across it. And if all of a sudden we have a potential point of contention right off the bat, or somebody's using something that kind of just like irks somebody the wrong way, that's why the language is important. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Tyler has the whole a theory of every one. It's like that's literally inclusive, and he used a zero, which well played, sir. But my thing is, as far as academia goes and everything, my note that I have down is I see a lot of good work personally. Just because like I'm watching like Brown University's like physics channel and stuff like that. Also, multi-layer twisted graphene. We can start to have like higher temperature superconductivity. We're achieving ignition. We're now having like gigajoule things for like 8 minutes and stuff like that. I'm like, this is some exciting stuff. And ultimately, at least for me personally, like if we want to literally potentially level up to within young folks now's generation to be able to have something like maybe a big bulky universal replicator or something like that, in order to get there, we're going to have like fusion level power sources so we're not polluting Mother Earth, so we can be good shepherds for her, as well as we're going to need to transmit that power and everything, so no one person has a single solution. But we're all factions, we all have a purpose, we all have the ability to contribute. That being said, I think one of the things is, again, don't hate the player, hate the game. You look at the incentive structure and everything where it's like, all right, we're competing. I may or may not have reached out to a particular academic to be like, I went to go post something on the archive. It's like, you can't post on archive. I'm like, oh, you need to be recommended by somebody. I reached out to a particular person. I'm like, any hesitation, say no. They said no. I respect them for that. But at the same time, my thing is, I think the competition aspect, and yeah, if anything is just in order to live and just exist, I think universal truth number 6, I call it, our minds tend towards the worst place. If something could be a threat, are you potentially going to let them in? Are you necessarily going to? My thing is, I heard Professor Wolfram once say that there was a superfluidity experiment where you shouldn't be able to replicate the results. Allegedly, they replicated the results, but they were too embarrassed about being made fun of to publish that, and that doesn't seem good if we have data that might be useful. That's my take.
Okay, so I'm going to retort, Brandon, can you please mark that, I think, as a point of contention? Memes and I can discuss that on another at another time. The idea of political correctness a little bit. I think incestuous is the proper word because it is accurate and there's no other way to look about it. And insofar as hate the player, hate the game, I agree. So this is what's great about it. We can agree and disagree at the same time. You know me, I'm very paradoxical. I disagree on the point that we can't use that language. I think that's one of the things that academia does. It stifles new ideas that aren't, approved, so that's why it's incestuous. It's just same DNA, just kind of going around in this same environment. But at the same time, I agree that you should hate the game. And so that is the game that I'm referring to, not individuals. Now, of course, individuals are going to say, yeah, well, I'm an academic, so you're attacking me. It's like, no, I'm attacking the environment that has, emerged that you're a part of, sure. But you shouldn't take it personally, And if you do contribute to it, maybe it brings you a bit of awareness. But
no, I get your point. 7-second response is that if somebody said that about us right here, how would that make us feel?
I would say, even if it feels bad, hey, if it feels bad, I'm going to think to myself first, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's some truth in that. And if there's no truth to it and I still feel bad, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's inconsequential. I shouldn't tell them not to use that language or do whatever, like Roy, he calls me an idiot a lot whenever I go and sit in on his satsangs quite a bit. And I still,
I do not.
yes,
No,
you do.
but you have that connection. You have that connection. You know it's coming with love. Whereas if it's somebody that's not familiar with you, like who do we curse? Those we love and hate. It can be hard to differentiate.
I like the idea of being a little bit rough around the edges. And Lucy is in the comments here is saying, I don't agree that we should hate the game either. So that's interesting. So it shouldn't be about hating the player or the game. And I would agree with that.
Maybe the system.
Yeah. And this leads me to wanting to ask you guys just to move on a little bit further. But we're going to go and start with Brandon and Daniel. I want to know a little bit about this AI thing. Oops, you okay? So does AI have a role to play here? I know we've all probably played with ChatGPT. Tell me about your experience, or what do you think? Will AI help us with unifying a theory? And what do you guys think? I'm going to hop off here and let Daniel come in. Daniel, can you please start, and then we'll go with Brandon. Or actually, Brandon, you're already on the screen, so please start, Brandon.
The way I see AI moving forward in specific context to finding answers about a theory of everything or proposed theory of everything would be that it's going to be limited by what information is already available, as far as I'm aware. And I mean, the technology can evolve to where it could maybe generate something new, like it does with, well, I say new in a sense. It's still cobbling things together from, like, for example, AI is used to, make generated images, which is, fine and all. It also makes generated text and the like, but again, it still sources from what already exists. I'm unsure if it could generate things out of what is effectively nothing. I'm not sure how that would work, because it would inherently defy how human cognition works. It doesn't just generate things from nothing. It has to take in some degree of information, have any sort of context to make an expression of some kind. As for how it could help with a theory of everything, perhaps it would be it would help in a way that it would help kickstart an idea, perhaps, but it wouldn't really provide any answers. The human thought has to be the one that generates the answers. It's the one that would make a intentional effort to put it together and make it make sense to everyone else that is in the cultural sphere. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. So basically, also, I just wanted to reiterate that as well. Current AI just can reiterate or redo what is already known. So, for example, what we had talked about here, it cannot do, and in that sense, it cannot do any new things as well. But what the utility could be, for example, if we use AI to this conversation, it could summarize what we talked about. That can do. So that's the utility. It's also can be there. So what I am also talking is this paradigm shift that is on the corner. It will produce the next tools to experiencing the world in the larger map, and after that completes, then probably the next we can call AGI, artificial general intelligence. After that might be, but that's I claim there is need a paradigm shift. It's on the corner, so it's close to here, but needs to use the technology, and after that, I think it will what is that? It will verify this paradigm shift. What I think. So that's my take. And after that, that's the true singularity in the modernist view or the technological singularity view, and then we don't really know on technological sense what happens. So that's something I wanted to point out. Yeah, someone else, if you want to.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about, but Brandon says here he has some thoughts on academia as well. And while we're on the subject, Roy as well. Okay, so I'll bring
Well, I have a point about artificial intelligence, but
as well.
I can take a number on that if you want. Or
Yeah,
Okay.
so do I. I can wait though. Brandon can go first.
All right, let's start with Brandon, then we'll go to Roy, and then we'll go to Tyler.
Okay. When it comes to academia, I choose to describe any worldly phenomenon that coincides with civilizations and societies, to imagine them as though they were vortices. And this, to go on a slight tangent before I get to the meat of the answer, is that vortices are kind of, well, everywhere. The Earth is a vortex, technically. The sun is a vortex. All spherical objects are ultimately vortices. They all spiral into a center, and then they just kind of accrete into something of a spheroid shape because they can't really do much of anything else. But if you look on a two-dimensional surface, for example, you would see that there is a steady concentration of material of sorts. And this accretion has particular properties regarding its center and its fringes. And the fringes would be kind of disparate and kind of scattered. They wouldn't have any sort of hardened structure of sorts. They just kind of loose and free floating and easily swept away into other vortices, for example. And then you have the center where things are hardened and solidified, and where things do not move all that much, but are definitely, well, I say they don't move. They are fixed in the sense that they are highly dense, that they're fixed in that sort of way. But in the center, it would be that things move increasingly fast and are constantly just sort of building and constantly improving and actively trying to utilize its fringes in order to keep itself nice and concretized. And that's what I see academia as. It is the concretization of motion, of information, of very particular contexts. And anything that is happening outside of that is not going to go, it's not going to reach very deeply unless it's already there in the first place. And sometimes you can have things in the fringes that can reach its center, but it takes an increasingly long time for that to happen. And the way I see it going is well, it's just going to keep increasing until this entire vortex of sorts just sort of has its fringes erode, and then its center also ultimately just crumbles into nothing. And that's when other vortices will have the chance to...
Society collapses?
Well, not society per se. Very particular vortices will. And where there is an individual, there is also a vortex in and of themselves, and each individual can also accrete their own vortex of sorts. And that's where the concept of individual sovereignty comes into play.
All right, guys. Well, straight from the mouth of Morpheus Jr., you have the prophecy. To add on to that, man, so I want to go back on academia real quick to add to counterbalance my earlier point, which is we need them. Like and in fact, I think we do the effort. I think all of us has probably at some point or other have contacted people in academia because they are highly specialized and they are like learning information in great detail that might feed us, and we might be able to feed them a new perspective. But I don't think, like you say, Brandon, using your analogy, that the vortex will be something that will absorb anything on the fringe. I think it takes something like this for us to come together to build our own sort of vortex, and so that you have two things that can merge. But right now, there's nothing that academia can merge with, except for maybe some movement like we're a part of. So I think we have to show that we are credible. We have to show that our ideas are valuable, and that in fact it's necessary for us to come together. And increasingly, we're seeing this in society. Everything is becoming more democratized. You're your own filmmaker, you're your own content creator, you're your own business person. So I think the more the world heads in that direction, the more we will have an integration of ideas, and there will be less of these centers that are impenetrable. So great job, Brandon, again. And for anyone listening, I might be a little bit, let's say, rough around the edges sometimes with my language, but I think it's necessary sometimes, and most of the time I think, agreeable. I don't intentionally provoke, but it's just when I heard Roy say that, I was like, that's literally the most accurate way to look at it. So, all right, Roy, that leads us to you. You said you had something to say about AI.
Yeah. So first of all, it's not sentient, and it never will be sentient. Just because it's using the word I doesn't mean that there's an I there. It doesn't mean that there's a separately existing entity there. It's just using the word I. So if the
Isn't
listener,
that what we're doing, buddy?
what's
We're
that?
just using the word I. Isn't that what we are all doing?
This is what I'm getting to. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
This is perfect segue for what I'm getting into. Is that what's the difference between the voice in your head and a chat box? And a chatbot. Why can't the voice in your head be fooling you that there's an actually independently existing separate I? There isn't. You're listening to a chatbot. The voice in your head is a chatbot. Now try to disprove that. If you can get fooled by a human computer program, couldn't you get fooled even more by God's program? Right? So what you take yourself to be, your name here, is a chatbot. That you aren't a separately existing entity.
It's
But
an
you're an entity.
instantiation. Oh, sorry.
But you're an entity.
Yeah, but there's no separately existing I, right? Just like there's no I in the chatbot, but yet you can be convinced that there's an I there. Same way
But
with
is the
with
chatbot
Tyler
an
Gold.
entity?
You are convinced that Tyler Goldstein is a separately existing entity, but you're not. You're just a
Is
chatbot.
the chatbot an entity?
No, it's a creation.
So we are an entity and it is not.
Wouldn't that infer we're a creation?
No, I'm not talking about the mind-body complex at all. I'm talking about the third thing. I'm talking about the zero, that which cannot be described. So the ultimate reality has created out of itself somehow. It's the self-enforcing self, just coming back onto itself, has created this game, and in it, it's programmed. It has this program that's the voice in all of our heads, convincing us that there's an I there. It's the same thing, people. So I know this really puts a damper on the conversation, doesn't it? But
No. See, for me, this is go on.
seriously, think about it. How can you disprove this? How can you prove that you're not a chatbot?
Because you feel.
Feel what?
You feel
In relation to those thoughts. If you don't have any sensations, okay, like, yeah. So there's a difference there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm using that term like that.
Right. So there's this distinction between the thought realm and the physical realm. But what I'm saying is that those thoughts are not you. There is no identity. There is no separately existing Tyler Goldstein. That's a fiction.
I mean, I'd say there's a superposition answer to that, that we are united under a single sentient being, and we are also singular sentient beings, is what I would say. So I think that the answer is both to that question. It's not a either or, it's a both.
I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are. Would you say we are part of one, whatever that one may be?
But you can't, that never works. It doesn't work. You can't be a part of one. If you were a part of one, you would have the same name. You would have the word. You would be your word, the name of you, your word would be associated, merged in with that thing. You can't
Haven't I
be
heard you
part
say
of
that we
it.
are God?
But there is no, you can't have unity with something inside something. There's still two things there. There's no way to get around it. You have to be God. You have to be God. There's no way around it. That's the superposition, is that you're God that is forgotten that you are because you're playing a video game. Just like a human forgets that they're human when they're playing a video game. It all fits, but no one wants to accept it.
I don't think nobody wants to accept it.
I
just think that it's not exactly correct. I mean, it's not wrong completely, but this was my issue with Leo Gura as well when he went on Kurt.
Don't compare me to that cunt.
I mean, well,
No,
he
language.
basically stated that you are God, and you forgot that you are God, and so I
guess so,
take issue with that.
But he doesn't know how to he doesn't know how to manifest it. He doesn't know how to stop the game. He knows how to. He thinks he knows how to play the game, but he doesn't know how to get out of the game, which is what spirituality is all about.
Are we
I
all
don't
playing
think
the
there's
same
a
game?
getting out of the game.
Just
Yeah,
so you
there
guys
is.
know,
That's what samsara nirvana is, right? Nirvana is exactly getting out of the game.
yeah, okay. So this leads me to a couple different things. One, that's what I call the conclusion paradox. I don't think you guys can either say that it will finish somehow or that it will continue. I think it's both, but that's something we can discuss at another time. But it's a point of contention. It's very important. I want us to debate this. Maybe all of us. I'll contextualize it better, but I think we could come back, all of us, and really discuss that, because that to me is the ultimate question, whether like reality continues or whether it collapses or something somehow. But anyway, yeah, we have to discuss that. And also, Brandon, please note down Roy and I should probably have a head-to-head on my view that his conceptualization that it's a game is way too anthropomorphic, and he believes the opposite, right? That it's not in a way. And then Tyler, you also said you had something you wanted to discuss. So can you please go ahead? We are ending in about 10 minutes, so keep that in mind, guys. Thanks. Take it away.
I mean, I had something to say about AI, and I'll keep that quick. But is that I don't think the term is a good term, and a technological sentience, I believe, will arise, and that being will have an I, and that is different from ChatGPT, which does not have an I. It is not sentient, and it is not a someone yet. Not even yet. It's not related. It's a different problem completely. I believe it, at least suggested by my work on this. This is how my work started, was trying to understand artificial general intelligence, quote unquote. But I changed to using the word technological sentience, because I think that there's no such thing as artificial intelligence, and if it's artificial, then it's an imitation, I guess. But I would just say, to bring it back to what Roy said, and that you guys are going to talk about, is that maybe a better way of trying to navigate that discussion is not whether or not this whole experience being a game is too anthropomorphic, but maybe it's meaningless. It's too meaningless. Even if it's not completely false, it's not complete enough, because it's not meaningful enough.
But the whole thing is completely meaningless. That's the fun of it. There's no meaning. We just create whatever meaning we want.
That you and I would have a contention on that. Then.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great one too. I think it's both. Again, I always try to harmonize. There's meaning, and when it comes to meaning, I think there's it's fundamentally tied to purpose. First off, you have to think about that first, and then if you have absolute purpose, then you have absolute meaning. So there's relativistic meaning, and then there's absolute meaning. So what is the absolute meaning? Is it recursive in the sense that, hey, the absolute meaning is for everyone to create their own meaning? So that would be meaningful in a way. Do you see what I mean? There's a way for it to be paradoxical or a way for it to be compatible, I believe. Anyway, so that's something I'd like to jump in on, Brandon. Maybe the three of us could have a debate on that, Luci, Tyler, and I. Guys, I think this is a great way to end this very first conference thing. And really, thank you for your time. Before we go, I'm going to ask Brandon to reiterate the points of contention that we could go ahead on in the future. I also want you guys to send me your links so I can post that in the description. What do you call it, memes? The doodly-doo? You always call it something?
The doobly-doo. I'm ripping off the Green Brothers.
Exactly. I'll add your stuff on the doodly-doo. Brandon, please take it away.
I'm currently collating all of them together so they're in one nice list. Let's see. Grabbing.
We have a very lively private chat. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Lucy. I'm going to bring Roy back on for this.
When the person who's in the doghouse, people can't hear them. Is that right? When they're talking?
Yeah, basically this is the stage, and you're backstage before there. The person that's hosting can see, but they can't hear.
I was saying in the background never got out, eh? Damn it.
We tried to have a respectable show here. I mean, if we want to be natural philosophers, just saying.
Tyler and I need to get a one-on-one so I can convince him that he's God. He needs a little push.
I'll listen to that.
I'll listen to that as well.
Who wouldn't want to be God? This is what I don't understand: is who wouldn't want to be God?
I'm going to introduce you to my friend
that's
Jen.
Not what's that. I don't have an emotional. That's not that. I don't have an aversion to that statement. The way that you probably think I do. It's that. It's. There's other reasons why I don't think that is the right way to phrase it.
All right, so the list is these particular things. Let's see. James wants to talk to Roy about the concept of a game. It's apparently too anthropomorphic. Tyler disagrees with Roy on everyone being God, on sensation and ChatGPT, and how those two things can be differentiated from each other. And let's see, meaning and meaning making with Luci in particular. And Luci, this is like a general consensus sort of thing that could spur future conversations. Let's see, Luci and Daniel do not think materialism and metaphysics can be reconciled. All else do. Well, myself included, I also don't think it can be reconciled. It's as unlikely. But yeah, those are all of the main points of contention that I have gathered. I'm not sure if I'm missing any. But if I am, feel free to tell me.
James said something about the teapot fallacy.
Yeah, well, that's something earlier, yeah. But I won't get into that now. I want to do something fun. It just came to my mind there. That's great. I love those. I'm not going to... So just let me know if you guys want to go for those challenges. And if you want me to mediate them or not. If not, you guys can just go and talk about it yourselves on your own platforms. I want to thank everyone here for participating. This has been really great. Like I said, I think we need to merge with academia a little bit. We can kind of feed off each other. And I think this is the start of something more credible. We're coming together. We're organizing a little bit, but at the same time doing our own thing. And I think that's important. I think it's like a real ecosystem. So thanks to Kurt for that. Again, that's fantastic. I have a fun way to end this. I was just thinking, let's take a few seconds to think about one word, just one word that you want to say before you just like leave the chat. All right, I'm gonna go for Luci, then Tyler, then Roy, then Memes, then Brandon, and then Daniel. So I'm gonna hop off the screen here. I'm just gonna say thanks. So I'm not taking part in this, but I think it'd be kind of ridiculous and fun. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
My one word is fuck. Of course, it's the best word. Fuck.
So many uses.
Fuck, fuck, fuck. Fuck the fucking fuckers. How is that a sentence?
What the fuck? Nice. I can't. The one that keeps coming up is enlightenment, but I mean that's got such a loaded connotation to it. But that's my word.
I believe mine would be transparency. That's it.
My word is thanks.
Cooperation.
Turtle. That's all I got.